Rolex is one of the few brands, if not the only brand, that has a very specific aesthetic. They are sporty, they are active, they are tool watches. That's kind of their main DNA. In the 50s, they came out with the Submariner, the Explorer.
A leak out of China has hit the luxury watch industry. As one of the world's most prestigious brands, Rolex is being forced to slash prices in response to dwindling sales. But what was exposed in this devastating leak that has left Rolex reeling? And how will this dramatic development affect the luxury industry? Join us to uncover the leak, the watch capital of the world. Let's take a little trip back in time, but not to Switzerland like you might expect. When people think of luxury watches, they picture peaceful villages, snowy mountains, and old men with tiny glasses carefully putting watches together. It's a lovely image, isn't it? But guess what? That story is more like a fairy tale now. The real heart of the watch world is far away from those snowy hills. It's time to meet a place called Shenzhen, China, the true watch capital of the world. Yes, you heard that right. Shenzhen, a bright modern city filled with lights, tall buildings, and busy streets, is where most of the world's watches are made. Over 95% of all the watches on this planet come from China, and a huge number of them are made in this one incredible city. Shenzhen proudly carries the title of the watch and clock capital of China, and it truly deserves it. Since the 1980s, when factories from Hong Kong moved to the Chinese mainland, Shenzhen's watch industry has grown very quickly. Thanks to China's open market reforms, this city turned into a strong industrial center, with watches becoming one of its biggest specialties. One big reason Shenzhen's watch industry does so well is because everything it needs is right there in the city. This is called industrial clustering. In simple words, nearly all the parts, tools, and materials needed to make a watch are produced locally. More than 95% of the parts for watches made in Shenzhen are manufactured within the city itself. So, when a company needs to build a new watch, it doesn't have to go far to get what it needs. Today, Shenzhen has over 1,100 watch companies, and they make up 41% of the world's production. In China alone, made in Shenzhen, watches cover 63% of the market. That's a massive number, and it's not just small local brands. Shenzhen is home to 7 of the top 10 Chinese watchmakers who set high standards for watchmaking. Some of these watch companies have also taken their products overseas. Now you'll find Shenzhen-made watches in Europe, Africa, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. One famous Chinese brand, theyre, is based here, and many younger brands are gaining attention for their lovely designs and solid quality. Here's a fun fact for you. While most people believe luxury Swiss watches like Rolex or Omega are fully made in Switzerland, the truth is that many of their parts, and sometimes even whole watches, are made right in Shenzhen. It sounds surprising, but it's true. And we're not talking about cheap knockoffs from a flea market. These are watches made with fine materials, high-grade dials, polished bracelets, sapphire glass, ceramic bezels, and everything you'd expect from a luxury piece. Some Shenzhen factories are believed to supply parts, and maybe even entire watches, for some of the world's biggest names. The only thing they don't have is the Swiss stamp. For years, this was a closely kept secret. Factories would quietly produce these beautiful watches, and no one would say a word. But now, some of them are stepping into the light and taking orders directly from customers. And that's where things get exciting. Imagine skipping the expensive watch store, avoiding middlemen, and going straight to the factory. In Shenzhen, you can do just that. Many of these factories offer a wide variety of styles, keep high standards, and even allow customers to design their own watches, with orders starting from as little as 50 pieces. Every June, Shenzhen holds the China Shenzhen International Watch and Clock Exhibition. It's the biggest watch exhibition in China, bringing together more than 90% of Chinese watch brands and suppliers. It's the perfect place for watch lovers to explore new designs, check out the latest technology, and connect directly with manufacturers. One reason Shenzhen has done so well is its complete industrial chain. There's something called the 1-hour supporting circle, meaning you can gather all the parts needed to build build a watch within an hour from nearby suppliers. Then skilled workers carefully put them together into high-quality watches, efficient and dependable. Another thing that makes Shenzhen stand out is how quickly its watch designs have improved. In recent years, the city has produced many stylish brands that have become popular. These new companies introduce creative designs, mixing modern styles with classic looks, and people love them. The surprising part is that many of these watches come from the very same factories believed to supply parts to luxury brands. And no, they're not cheap fakes. These are solid, well-made watches created with top-quality materials, using the same tools and care as the world's biggest names. The only difference is the name on the dial. It's a little shocking to learn that what we believed about Swiss watchmaking isn't the full story. While Switzerland is known for its history and luxury branding, the real production work happens elsewhere, mostly in Shenzhen. Now, let's expose the truth about the luxury brands and watches you see as very expensive. What have they been hiding? Let's dive in. Behind the luxury label. Now let's talk about something that might really surprise you. When you look at a fancy watch with the words Swiss made on it, you probably imagine a small, cozy workshop somewhere in the Swiss Alps. Maybe you picture an older watchmaker with tiny glasses, carefully putting together tiny pieces with a magnifying glass. That's the story most people believe, and it's the image luxury watch companies want you to have. But here's the truth, and once you hear it, you might never look at those watches the same way again. Most high-end watches are not completely made in Switzerland. In fact, many parts of these watches come from China. This includes the cases, the straps, and sometimes even the watch faces. A lot of what you think is a Swiss watch probably started its life inside a factory in Shenzhen, China. Now you might wonder, how can a watch still be called Swiss-made if most of it was made in China? Well, that's where a clever little trick comes in. There's a special rule in Switzerland that makes this possible, and it's been fooling customers for a long time. Swiss law says that for a watch to be labeled Swiss-made, at least 60% of its value must come from Switzerland. The important word here is value, because it doesn't just mean the parts. It includes things like the brand name, the advertising, the design, the research, and the final assembly. So even if most of the parts are made in China, as long as enough value is added in Switzerland, the watch can proudly wear the Swiss-made label. Imagine this. A factory in Shenzhen makes the case, the bracelet, the dial, and other parts. Then, these are shipped to Switzerland, where the movement, the heart of the watch, is added, and a few final touches are made to make it look perfect. That little bit of work in Switzerland, plus the famous brand name, suddenly turns it into a luxury, Swiss-made watch. And you might find yourself paying thousands of dollars for a watch that was mostly built somewhere else. The movement inside a watch is very important because it makes the watch work. Swiss movements are famous for being high quality, but sometimes watches use movements from other places too, or cheaper quartz movements instead of the traditional mechanical ones. Some former employees from these watch companies have spoken about this, while others stay quiet because they're afraid to lose their jobs. One ex-worker even shared that back in the 1970s, famous watch brands were already using parts from Asia in their watches. When he fixed old watches, he saw that the bracelets, the hands, and many other pieces came from Chinese factories. Sometimes the movement was Swiss, and sometimes it wasn't. So, this isn't something new. It's been happening for much longer than most people think. The luxury watch business is very clever. They mix powerful branding with smart business tricks. By using the famous Swiss-made label, they create a feeling of elegance, history, and class that people fall in love with. This label makes you believe you're buying a piece of history, even though many of these watches are made in busy modern factories far away. And it's not just one or two brands doing this. Many famous and luxury watch companies follow this same plan. Most of the parts are made in China. Then the final steps and branding happen in Switzerland. Price goes up. The watch is placed behind shiny glass in a fancy store, and people come by, dreaming of owning it. The truth they don't want you to know. The scandal happening now is much bigger than people first thought. What started as simple gossip has turned into a huge, messy situation. The reason you haven't seen it on the big news channels is very clear. The luxury watch world is full of money. Famous brands like Rolex, Omega, and Cartier spend millions every year on advertising. Magazines and websites happily take that money, so they don't want to upset these brands. They won't risk losing their cash just to tell the truth. And it's not just the big magazines doing this. Watch fans, influencers, and popular people online are also part of the problem. They get invited to special events, given free watches, treated to fancy dinners, and showered with expensive gifts. Some even get paid to post pictures. With offers like that, no one wants to ruin the fun. They keep smiling, taking photos, and saying what the companies want them to say. Nobody wants to lose a free Rolex or a luxury trip by telling what's really going on behind the scenes. But now, things are starting to change. The quiet voices are finally speaking up. Influencers on YouTube and TikTok, along with unnamed workers from the factories, have had enough. The factories in China that make parts for these fancy watches are no longer staying silent. They're sharing the truth behind the shiny ads and pretty magazine pages. And what they're saying is shocking. These secrets used to be hidden in private online groups, but now everyone can see them. TikTok is full of videos showing fake watches that look just like the real ones, made in Chinese factories. These factories have stopped being careful and are now proudly showing what they do, causing a lot of talk online. The news is too big to hide anymore, and the famous Swiss brands can't explain it away. Even Rolex, the brand everyone thought was perfect, is having problems. Rolex watches have always been known for being rare and very expensive. That made people feel special when they owned one. But to everyone's surprise, Rolex recently lowered prices on some of their watches, and people started to talk. They didn't lower prices on everything, just on a few popular models, but it was enough to get attention. Some watches, like the Submariner, the GMT Master 2, and a few Oyster Perpetuals, were made cheaper by up to 20% in certain places, without making a big announcement. This just so happened after a video spread online showing Rolex-style parts being packed in huge amounts in a warehouse in Longgang, China. It didn't take long for people to connect these two things. Rolex didn't say a word about it. They didn't make a statement or start a new ad campaign. Instead, they quietly told their dealers in some areas to lower prices. But watch fans noticed right away. Soon, people were talking about it in online groups, stores, and among collectors. You could feel the worry in the air. Why did they inform their dealers to drop the prices? What were their true intentions? Stay with us. The real reason behind the price drops. The sudden drop in prices, happening at the same time as secrets from the luxury watch world were exposed, made people very suspicious. Brands quietly lowered prices on certain models, and this worried fans of expensive watches. The luxury market survives by creating a special, mysterious feeling, making people believe these watches are rare and worth the high price. But now, that mystery is slowly falling apart as more price cuts appear. There's a bigger story happening behind the scenes. In 2024, Switzerland's watch exports dropped a lot, hitting their lowest point in the last 20 years, except during the tough pandemic times. This was a huge problem for an industry that always depended on skill, tradition, and charm. To deal with these money problems, many companies started focusing on super high-end watches. These weren't just expensive, they were made to seem extra rare and available only to a few lucky people. But when the secrets about supply chains and hidden details came out, people stopped believing in the dream. Buyers got smarter and began learning how things really work, and many started skipping the middlemen completely. Almost overnight, private chats on apps like Telegram, WeChat, and WhatsApp replaced fancy watch shops. Factories in China began selling directly to buyers, offering custom luxury watches at much lower prices than the big stores. And then something even more surprising happened. People stopped calling them fake. The story changed. Now, these watches are called things like factory build, B-grade homage, same line release, or parallel build. Sometimes they're labeled as unbranded OEM, which stands for Original Equipment Manufacturer. It means we made this, but we can't say it's for Rolex. These are much better than the cheap knockoffs you see on discount websites. The quality is way higher. In the world of luxury watches, prices have slowly been going down, though you won't hear much about it. Market trackers like the Subdial Bloomberg Index and Chronopulse by Chrono24 show that watch prices hit their lowest point in October of last year. Since then, prices have either stayed the same or moved very little. A new report by Watch Charts reports, and Morgan Stanley for the last part of 2024 shares a slightly different and worrying picture. Prices have kept falling, dropping by about 1.5% from the last quarter and 1.2% compared to the same time the year before for the world's most popular watches. Richemont brands were hit the hardest, with average prices falling 2.4% in just 3 months. Even Cartier, which usually does well, saw its prices drop by 2.2%. Many famous watch brands like Vacheron Constantin, Jaeger-LeCoultre, A. Lange & Söhne, and Piaget saw their prices drop over 2% since the summer of 2024. Meanwhile, brands owned by LVMH did a little better, but still saw prices fall by about 0.6% each quarter. Zenith, the smallest brand under LVMH, actually had a small increase of 0.6% in its second-hand watch prices. But even that wasn't enough to save them from a tough year where the average price of used Zenith watches dropped by 5.1%. Rolex, too, faced a big problem. Its prices dropped to a 4-year low, according to Watch Charts and Morgan Stanley. Not only have Rolex prices fallen far below their highest point in 2022, but they're now also 3% lower than they were in January 2021. The most surprising part is that some Chinese suppliers are getting extra materials from official Rolex orders. Instead of throwing those extra parts away, the factories finish making the watches and quietly sell them. These aren't cheap copies. They look and feel just like real Rolex watches, made with the same materials and quality, only without the official Rolex stamp. Now, let's look at the money side of things. It might seem like luxury brands make huge profits because their prices are so high, but the truth is a little different. Big luxury watch companies, which are part of large groups like Swatch, Richemont, and LVMH, usually make profits between 10% and 20%. That's good money, but it's nowhere near what the really rich companies make. Take the tech and medicine industries, for example. Apple has a 32% profit margin, while Microsoft makes 38%. Novo Nordisk, the company behind the popular medication Ozempic, goes even higher with 39%. It makes you realize a $15,000 Rolex might not seem as shocking once you see how other industries are making even bigger profits without all the shiny marketing. The money secrets behind Rolex. Before we start praising Rolex too much, let's remember something important. They are still making a lot of money. Even though they have a classy image and beautiful watches, they are earning huge profits. Behind the shiny lights and fancy new releases, there's a complicated money story that many people don't know about. Rolex is different from other big companies because it doesn't share its financial numbers like other luxury brands do. Most businesses care about making money for their investors, but on paper, Rolex is listed as a non-profit foundation. Even though they don't talk much about money, they're still quietly collecting a fortune behind the scenes. The big question everyone wonders about is how much it really costs to make a Rolex watch. People who work in the watch world say a watch that sells for $6,000 might only cost about $1,200 to $1,500 to produce. That's less than a quarter of the price you pay. On top of that, there are extra costs from the stores that sell them, and a secret luxury tax added just because they know people will pay it. Some watch companies are more open about their prices. Christopher Ward, a popular British brand, says they never charge more than 3 times what it costs to make a watch. Omega, another big name, usually raises the price by about 4 times, but Rolex is known for being the most expensive. Many experts agree that Rolex raises their prices by 5 times or more. That means for a $10,000 watch, it may have only cost $2,500 to $4,000 to make. To be fair, Rolex doesn't just take the money without offering anything special. Making one of their watches involves many steps. The costs go up a lot when using gold, platinum, or other precious metals. The watches also need special designs, careful craftsmanship, and lots of time to put everything together. Even though stainless steel watches are the most popular, it still costs about $4,000 to make one on average. Most companies make products by buying parts in big amounts, hiring workers to put them together, and paying for their factories. But Rolex is different because they do almost everything themselves. They make most of their own parts and run their own buildings, which makes it more expensive, but it also gives them total control over quality and secrecy. Another thing to think about is how many watches Rolex makes. They don't share this number with the public, but many people in the industry guess that they make about 1 million watches every year. That's a lot of watches, especially when you consider the high prices. Even though Rolex isn't living like the rich movie characters you see on screen, they're doing very well. They run a successful business based on luxury, reputation, and exclusivity, and people are happy to pay for it. When you buy a Rolex, you're getting more than just a watch. You're paying for the whole brand experience. The price includes more than the watch itself. It covers the image, the advertising, the mystery, the good name, and the history they've built over many years. That little crown logo stands for more than telling time. It represents success, high status, and a special kind of lifestyle. Some will ask what the difference is between the original and the fake. Well, let's find out why the real thing feels different. To be honest, looks can be very tricky when it comes to how much something really costs. These days, it's easy to find fake luxury watches being sold online. That copy of a Rolex you saw on Instagram for $60 might look shiny in pictures or under soft lighting, but when you get a closer look, the truth becomes very clear. Of course, a short story might make it seem real, or from far away it could fool someone, but once you really look at it, the magic is gone. Fake watches are usually made with cheap parts, very different from the carefully made pieces of a real luxury watch. The inside part, which is the heart of the watch, is often a simple, low-quality piece that makes loud, uneven ticking sounds. A real automatic watch moves so smoothly and quietly, while the fake one ticks like a noisy toy. It's not just how it moves. The fake watches also use weak, flimsy material. The important seals that protect a real watch from water and dust are either missing or badly made in a fake one. This means wearing a fake watch in a hot shower or on a rainy day will make it fog up fast. It's even risky to wear a fake watch while washing your hands. You can also tell by the material. Most of the time, it's a cheap metal that scratches easily and feels too light in your hand. A real Rolex has a special heaviness because it's made from strong stainless steel or precious metals. The tiny details like smooth edges and glowing parts aren't there in a fake. The glow may fade quickly or disappear after a little time in the dark, and that pretty shine you see on a real one is missing. There's no sign of a skilled Swiss expert behind these copies. What truly matters, more than what it's made of, is how a fake makes you feel inside. Deep down, you always know it isn't real, and that can quietly take away your confidence. Imagine walking into a room full of people who really love fine watches. The ones wearing real ones will quickly notice yours is a fake. They'll see how it shines, hear how it ticks, and notice how it feels on your wrist. In that moment, your self-confidence will take a hit. You might think you can hide how you feel, but inside, it truly matters. Real confidence comes from being honest about who you are, not pretending to be something else. A fake might fool someone for a little while, but it will never fool you. Real things show themselves through little signs: the weight, the sparkle, the sound, and the way it feels. And nothing feels better than wearing something real with quiet, proud confidence. Another reason fake products don't compare is because of where and how they're made. Swiss watchmakers have spent many years, sometimes hundreds, learning their craft. Every little part of the process is important to them, from the first idea to making the parts and carefully checking each watch. But the factories that make fake watches don't care that much. They use bad materials, skip important steps, and don't pay attention to the tiny details. They might copy how a luxury watch looks, but they can't capture the heart of what makes it special. Is it really worth the price? One common question people often ask when thinking about luxury watches is whether or not they cost too much. At first, first, this might seem like an easy question to answer, but the truth is, it's a little more complicated than it looks. There are many things that make this topic tricky. So, let's take a calm and careful look at it together. When people think about fancy watches, they usually picture accuracy, history, and beautiful craftsmanship. They imagine skilled hands gently putting together tiny parts to create a lovely and lasting watch. And while this is true for some watchmakers, not all luxury watches are made this way. Some brands use ready-made parts, add a famous name on the front, and raise the price just because they can. Of course, when you hold a Rolex or any other famous watch for the first time, it's hard not to admire how beautiful it is. The shine, the weight, the way it feels, everything about it seems special. A watch that feels heavier naturally makes people think it's worth more than a lighter one. And anyone who loves watches knows how much respect certain brand names carry. These brands have become symbols of wealth, success, and high status. The name alone makes the price go up. For example, the company that makes Rolex watches is known for paying attention to every tiny detail in making their watches. They control everything from design and materials to how it's made and finished. This careful work makes them different from many others. But it also makes people wonder if the high price is fair. How much does it really cost them to make each watch? Are they making too much profit? A lot of luxury watch companies today rely on their well-known image. Some try to improve by adding new styles or better technology, but others simply depend on their famous logo. These companies know people will pay more just for the brand name, even if the watch itself isn't much different from less famous ones. This is very common in the watch world. Still, the way you feel about all this might change when you understand what you're really buying. It's not just a thing you wear on your wrist, it's a quiet sign of privilege, respect, and success. This little watch can catch people's eyes, leave a good impression, and quietly show you've achieved something. For some people, that feeling is worth more than money. So, are luxury watches too expensive? If you only look at the cost of the parts and labor, many of them are. The difference between what they cost to make and what they sell for can be quite shocking. But when you think about how it makes you feel, the value changes. If wearing that watch makes you feel proud, happy, and confident, the price starts to matter a little less. When the day is done, knowing about markups, ads, and brand stories can really make you feel stronger and wiser. A product's value isn't just what the company says it is, it's about how much it means to you. If something brings you joy and makes your life brighter, maybe it isn't too expensive for you. And that's the sweetest part of it all. In the end, the choice is always yours to make. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen. It's fast,